Welcome to Deeply Rooted, a web series on mindset. My name is Tony Wisdom, aka Tony Gaines. I've spent over 20 years in the music business as a producer, engineer, label owner, and executive. This show is dedicated to changing the narrative on success. I reached out to the most successful people I know. I want to know what drives them, their greatest mistakes, their best advice, their secrets to success, and how all of that has shaped who they are today. Take a journey with us. There we are. Hey. Deeply Rooted, Season 6, Episode 2. This one is a blast from the past. Someone I haven't seen or spoken to in 25 plus years. But she's special to the early part of my life. She was involved with Mobtown Hustlers, which was how I entered the music business. Never really tell that story, but I came into the music business really as an investor. And we invested in a record label and a group, and Krystal was part of that group, and I was thinking as this interview was coming up, I was thinking how much courage it took in 1995 when there was no Eminem, there was no Iggy Azalea, and the first quote unquote white rapper, female rapper that I ever encountered in my entire life was Lady K. And I thought about just again what kind of courage that took and where's that mindset, when you're trying to be the first or you're pushing through. So just that contemplation alone has me so excited to just see where Krystal's gone in her life since then. That kind of gumption, that kind of courage. I know it's going to take you great places. So without further ado, I will bring Krystal on and we'll get this thing started. Thank you. Hi.
Thank you for that introduction.
Yeah. No, I was seriously thinking it took some courage right there, especially in that environment. Like that's a courage. So yeah, how are you?
I'm good, my friend. It's amazing to see you and to reconnect with you and just think about all the water that's flown under this bridge, for 20 plus years. It's just I think I really needed to hear what you said though, Tony, because God's positioned me in a place to start something new that's way bigger than I am right now. And it's taking a lot of courage. And I often ask God, like, why did you pick me? Like, I'm the most unlikely person to be picked for what I'm doing today. And I had forgotten about that. Not that I forgot about that time or in everything, that part of my life, because it's a really special part of my life. But I did never think about it from your perspective and the courage. I didn't think that. I was just walking through it. I love poetry. I love the guys. I love music. And it just made sense to be able to share that with people. Plus, at the time, and this is back in the day, you remember like we'd get in circles and we would just rap. We would literally just rap. And it's just poetry and it's being really quick minded. And so it was always fun to get in there and try to win. I'm competitive. And so I would look at like a competition, like I'm gonna go and I'm gonna win. And it was a lot of fun. I did get spit on in the face one time. I remember that.
Wow.
I'm gonna say who it was, but I did one time. But I won. So
that's awesome. So what have you been up to? Like who is Krystal Parker professionally?
Yeah, so it was quite a journey, really. When you knew me, I was still in college and I was at KU getting my degree. And I ended up with 21 hours left leaving college, and I needed to. I'm a college dropout, and so I left with 21 hours and went all the way back, 6.5 hours, all the way back on the other side of Kansas to my small town of 300. And I was broken. I had made some bad choices and bad decisions, went down the wrong path, and I had to start over. And it's really hard too when you think about starting over. in a place where everybody knows your name at
Mm-hmm.
300 people. And I remember when I left that place, I'm like, I'm leaving. I'm never coming back. I'm going to go set the world on fire. And here I came back with my tail between my legs as a broken kid
Mm-hmm.
and had to start over. And I think sometimes it kind of makes me think, if you bake a cake and you forget some of the main ingredients, you got to throw it out and start over. And I feel like that was kind of my opportunity to remake who was Krystal Parker and to really start. I lucked out. I started actually stocking shelves in a truck parts store as a temporary employee, and it was the subsidiary of a gas company. And that's where I started my career. I got to cut my teeth in business, and I just started making moves every 2 to 3 years. I was moving up. So I went from shelf stalker to front desk, can I get your coffee, to the bookkeeping side, to supervising. And all of these came with moves. And then within 11 years, I became the youngest executive in this Fortune 199 oil and gas company. And I was running the gas company all on the west side of Texas, so in 47 cities. And I had no experience. I had no experience in engineering and construction and meter reading and corrosion. Like, I had none at all. And we were also running the customer service for all of the state of Texas. And then I went back to school. I got my degree. I got my psychology, my master's in marketing, and then they sent me to Harvard Business School. So I was stacking on the accolades, stacking up the power, all the competition. I was doing it. And really what I didn't know, which is where I am today, was I was trying to bury parts of me that were broken, that needed to be healed. And I thought if I did what the world said would make me successful: drug, sex, rock and roll, power, money, nice car, nice house, all those things, that I would have everything that I need and have that peace in my heart. And then I didn't. There wasn't enough money. There wasn't enough things I could put in that hole. Marriage one failed, but I'm this corporate executive. And the higher up I got in that ladder, the smaller God got in my life.
Wow.
And so I realized that, every door would close until I got right with who I was, until I got right from the inside out. And that's when I started to really be able to touch and reach people, where I am in the position that I'm in today.
That's such an awesome story. And again, that courage shows up, right? That courage to say, yes, I'll go from stocking shelves to this next thing, even though I don't know what the heck is going on. I'll give it a try, right? That courage shows up. So I love it.
Wow. I'm going to lean into that, Tony. Thank you.
So who is Krystal Parker, the person?
Yeah, that was interesting, because that was a question I had to ask and find out when the door shut and I left corporate. And I remember, I'll never forget it. I told my daughter, she was about 5 at the time, that I was leaving the gas company. And she looks up at me and her eyes filled up with tears. And she said, "But if you're not Krystal Parker, vice president, who are you?" Now, that should have broke my heart, that my daughter didn't know me as mom, but knew me as officer, right? But it didn't, because I was trying so hard to figure out who I was. And so now, as a professor, when I teach my students, I tell them, strip away your car, strip away your title, strip away everything that you've amassed on this earth. And who are you? Truly, who are you? And that was something that I searched for a long while. And now I get it. And I proudly say that I am Krystal Parker, child of the risen King. And that right there is who I am. Born, made new, and just shining the light of Christ in this world. It's that simple.
I love it. I love it. And you're right. That takes a lot of inventory. It takes a lot of honesty. It takes a lot of, peeling back layers. And it's not always pretty and it's not always fun, But once again, the courage shows up. You see what I'm saying? It's a reoccurring theme here.
I'm leaning into this because you're right. It is. And the thing was, when I wrote my book's called The Best Robot Wins. It ain't personal, it's just business. But when I wrote my book, I was really talking about so many times when people are, no matter what your job is, you walk into that job, into the work, and you take off your human form and you become whoever they tell you you're supposed to be in that role. Like, you've heard it before. Take off your personal hat and put on your work hat. Leave your problems at home, leave your personal life out of this. But we are a whole human that's supposed to be able to come into a job and to work. And so, through years and years of sacrifice in the gas company, I became really vanilla. Like,
Yeah.
I didn't know who I was. And so I just encourage people. There's so many different tools and things that are out there to help you really find out who your identity is. But it's hard to get where you're going if you don't know who you are. And it even works in business too, Tony, because when I came into the Christian Chamber of Commerce as the president, I did not know that this organization was in an identity crisis.
Mm.
It was so interesting because it was really one evolution away from dying. I always love a challenge, okay? I don't know if it's courage or stupidity. It might be courage. Yeah, you tell me I was the only white rapper in there. I didn't see it like that. I just saw a bunch of brothers and sisters and they're having a good time. I don't know. But anyway, it was one evolution away from being over. And it was right when COVID hit. And
Mm.
so everything was against this living and succeeding.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, so it's a Christian chamber, so we must be a chamber. So I started to compare us to chambers of commerce.
Yeah.
And that was absolutely a ridiculous idea because the fastest way to kill something special is to compare it to something else. Like, I'll never be a better you than you, right?
Mm.
Even if I want to be the best Tony Wiz, I can't. And so comparing it was just clearly I wasn't supposed to do that. I'm like, well, maybe because it's a Christian chamber, maybe we should do like Bible study or something here,
Mhm.
And God shut that down. It was like, I've got the church. Let me use the church. Marketplace, your ministry, your businesses and business leaders and entrepreneurs and nonprofits and humans that are Christ followers, but you're in the marketplace. So in order for us to really figure out who we were, it was like, we've got to let just everything go in terms of what we think we are, and then really root into what God wants us to be and who we're supposed to be. And we are growing and have been growing, and we're launching the National U.S. Christian Chamber of Commerce so we
Mm.
can reach across the nation believers in the marketplace. So it's amazing what has happened once we got clear on identity.
Great, great answer. I love it. And just before I move on, it's like you a GPS, right? You get in
Mhm,
your car and you enter in something in your GPS and it will take you there.
mhm.
But if you don't know where you're going, it does not matter. It does not matter. You could just drive in circles, right? So knowing where you're
Good.
going is one of the first steps. So
That's so
I
good.
love it.
That's great.
Um, how do you define success?
Well, when I first started in my career, success for me was going to the grocery store and buying whatever I wanted. That was success for me, and not
Mhm.
looking at the prices and getting everything I wanted in the grocery store. And I still think that that is a little bit of definition, honestly, humbly. But now, as I've evolved as a leader, success to me is helping people win. Like, I really thrive on seeing people win. And
Mhm.
it could be in any kind of way. And we were just at an event today that we had about 130 people in the room, and it's a business meeting. And there's an amazing speaker, and two people gave their life to Christ today.
Mhm.
And they came to a Christian meeting, but they weren't saved.
Mhm.
And so that to me is success, is really leaning into what God's called in my life, and then just obediently serving and letting Him come out with the results. So I think if I put something in my head like this is success, then I'll miss it. I think the biggest thing is serving God and letting His will be done for whoever I come in contact with. That's success to me.
I love it. Being what you're here to be.
Amen, sir. Yes, yes.
So, what drives you? What's your why? And maybe that goes into it. Maybe you just answered it, right?
It's hard. There's a lot of days it's really hard. Like for example, when I was writing the book, it was a really cool story how it happened. I was always told I was a bad writer.
Mhm.
Every supervisor, like every time they gave me feedback, it was like, you need to work on your writing skills. And then when I went to college, I did it virtually. So it was a lot of writing, and I'm a professor online. So I write a lot. But I was really afraid to put any stuff out content wise because I was afraid of criticism and people being critical.
Mhm.
And it was actually Troy Cook that really kind of challenged me, which is no surprise that Troy would challenge you, right? A mutual friend of ours and my brother-in-law. And, he really just said, put something out. You've got to, God can't bless it if you don't get rid of it, right? If you don't release it. So I started putting some stuff out on LinkedIn, and I was like, okay, that's cool. I didn't get under the firing squad. And so anyways, I was in the middle of running the Central Florida Christian, reviving it.
Mhm.
We're launching the US Christian. We were doing our first ever US Christian Business Expo out of Orlando. I'm a professor, I'm a single mom, and I have my own company called Intent and Impact.
Mhm.
And I had a publisher come to me, which I didn't know was a big deal at the time. Like, it's a big deal if a publisher says, hey, do you want to write a book? But here was the caveat, Tony. He wanted it in 3 months, this book.
Oh.
Yeah, yeah. 3 months. I'm like, okay, it must be a blessing. I'm not gonna say no. Same sort of thing happened when they sent me to Harvard Business School. So I was like, I'm gonna say yes and then figure it out along the way.
Mhm.
And it was hard. I when they say bite off more than you could chew, I was at that point where I play tennis, and I was on my way to a Saturday morning tennis, and I literally was crying the whole way. I was done. I was shutting down. I was like at a mental breakdown, I think, really. And
Mhm.
I just felt like I can't go on. And it wasn't until that moment that you don't feel like you can go on anymore that you have to root yourself and find out why. Your why has to be so ever present and strong because the decision to quit would have been so easy. I could have quit everything. It would have been so much easier. And I've heard it said this way, and I think it's really important for your audience to hear. But the higher your calling, the harder things will be. The higher your calling, the larger the desire to quit will be. The distractions, the the amount of things that you have to deal with, the tax that you deal with will be so much greater the higher your calling is. And I'm telling you, if everything could go wrong, it went wrong, and I was done. And I came home, and I was telling you about my daughter. She's 15, and that is my why. She's my why.
Mhm.
And I remember just being like, we're like, I'm broke. Like, I can't do anymore. I can't, I can't sit down and write anymore. I'm tired. I'd worked, I can't tell you how many days in a row. And I know we're supposed to rest, and I didn't. And she looked at me, Tony, and she said, but mom, you've come this far.
Mhm.
I knew right then that every hard decision she had for her life for the rest of her life would come down to the decision I made that day. More is caught than taught. I was modeling at that point and changing the trajectory of her life because of how she saw me and experienced me. And let me tell you what will dry up your tears, pull up your big girl panties, put back on that happy face and get in. And it was, the blessing was just around the corner. The hardest part was right when the blessing was around the corner.
Mhm.
I got the book. We actually hit number 1 on new release in Amazon, which
Mhm.
I don't even know that many people, so I don't know how they read that book. But that little girl who is my why stood up that day and said, "You've come this far." And I could see in her eyes how disappointed she was gonna be in me if I didn't
Mhm.
finish. And I did it for her. So whatever your why is, maybe you don't have a kid, but maybe it's something that is bigger than you or something even small, maybe a memory, maybe you're honoring somebody's life or a family member's dream. Whatever it is, keep it in front of you because I promise you, if your calling is worth anything, you will be tempted to quit. And if you're not tempted to quit, you're too comfortable and you need to push yourself out because
Mhm.
something is something to be careful for.
And that's a mic drop. There's really not anything else to say to that. You that was so beautifully put, right?
Thank you.
Yeah, and I hear that. You hear that a lot, right? From it's people's default answer when you say, what is your why? And it's oh, it's my children, right? But that's the first time I really heard someone explain it, right? And
Mhm.
you said it so beautifully. And I've had situations too where, you know, how I react to this situation. My kids are watching,
Yeah.
and you know, I had trauma. I'm in the hospital, just surgery, almost died. You know,
Wow.
and I got up, and I just, you know, and then I watched the example. My son, you know, I think it happened on a Friday morning. He had a basketball game on Saturday morning, and he went and had one of the best games of the season. And then a couple months later, I asked him, like, you know, like, how did you do that? Like, what was going on? He said, well, you told me you were okay. I saw it in your face, and that was it. And I moved on, and I
Wow.
went and played basketball, you know, and like, holy sheesh, man, like, golly, that's powerful, you know. And when you realize, you know, these little people are, like you said, they're
Mm.
watching you. And she would
Mhm.
have carried that in
Yeah.
her 30s when she ran
Wow.
into an obstacle. And she
Yeah.
would have said, you know what? It'll be all right. I can give up.
Mhm. Wow.
Powerful, Krystal, powerful.
Mm.
So, can you think of a major setback in your life that set you up for later success? And do you have a favorite setback?
Ooh. I've got a lot of setbacks. Thank God, right? We're supposed to fail. I always tell people, fail fast and adapt quicker. Like fail, you want to fail. Failure is good. I just love the story of Sarah Blakely with Spanx. Her
Mhm.
dad would sit her and her brother down every night and ask them how did they fail that day. And so failure wasn't a bad thing. It was actually celebrated. And now look at her. She's a multi-millionaire, not billionaire. So
Yeah.
but I think one of the most sort of embarrassing failures, like that was like right there on display, and I write about it in my book, is we went in for a rate case and I was new as an executive. And of course, coming in, I was 34 years old. So I was the youngest executive in the company and a woman, there was just a handful of us in there, 60 suits, 5 women, and I was the youngest. And so we went right in for a rate case in El Paso. And in the oil and gas business and the distribution side, you live and die by rate cases. And this was a very contentious rate environment in El Paso, but it was our second biggest income source for Texas, and it was my area. And so I went to rate school for a week, and they're telling me how to do this, and it was not only televised. It was in not only were people in Austin and Tulsa watching the outcome of this, right? But it was also very, very public in El Paso. And as the highest ranking officer, it was my area, my responsibility. At least that's what it looked like. But there were all these executives and people behind me telling me how to do this and how to do that and how to do this. And so all my instincts to how to negotiate this and to work through this, I couldn't do what felt natural because I
Mm,
had to follow the rules, but yet I was the one publicly to fail.
mm,
And they voted us down. But not only did they vote us down, it's the city council, it's the mayor, it's everybody that go in and meet. And one of the city council women came up to me and said, I'm so disgusted by you. Like I not only failed, but I became like public enemy. Like trying to increase these rates and take all these people. It was horrible. It was really embarrassing and horrible.
mm,
And I think the biggest thing that I learned there was that, when you have people that work for you, trust their instinct, trust them, like trust the people that work for you and pour into them and let them shine. Part what you'll see in the book. But also the other thing was my instinct told me what to do. And I didn't do it because I was
mm,
afraid. And I think that
Mhm.
was another big lesson learned was that you've got to follow your instinct because your instinct is genuinely right. Like I teach a decision-making process, and I
Mhm.
think you should have a process for decision making, especially big decisions. But can't rule out the power of prayer, and you cannot rule out that power of that what people call the instinct. I call it the Holy Spirit, but it's a leading that is different than what the world would say. So one plus one doesn't always have to equal two. It may not even make sense, but if your gut is telling you something, listen. And I didn't, and I failed miserably. Failed miserably.
I love that. And if you're not failing, you're not trying, if you
Yeah,
ask me, you
that's
know.
good. That's
um,
good.
what is one of the best or most worthwhile investments you've ever made? Could it be an investment of money, time, energy?
Hmm. Yeah, I heard a wealth planner talk about this one day, and she asked the whole crowd, the audience, she said, "What is your highest investment that you have?" And someone said, "Oh, my house," and someone said, "My boat," whatever else. And she said, "No, that's not right." She said, "The highest wealth investment that you have is yourself." Because you yourself have to show up. If you're not producing, earning money, if you're not, creating the income and innovating, then who is, right? For your family. And so that's really true. I mean, it is. And so as a consultant in business, I mean, I've invested in myself and I do invest in myself every single year. I do that. I heard you went to see Tony Robbins, right?
Hmm.
Yeah, or and be a part of that group. You're probably more involved than just going to see them. You're probably like up there on stage or something.
Not yet, but I'm
You will
coming.
be, you will be, my friend. You will be, no doubt. And I remember even starting out as a supervisor in the gas company.
Mhm.
I was also working a direct sales business at the time. So I was doing tandem two and two. Well, the direct sales business is what really got me involved in personal growth and development. I mean,
Mhm.
it was a skincare company disguised as a personal growth and development. And so I was surpassing everybody in the business world because I was pouring into me, pouring
Mhm.
into me. And, I heard you talk about it earlier off camera, and I really resonated with what you said. But with what you're doing with this podcast, dude, you're growing. Like you're growing in a way that most people don't. Like, I mean, if people say, well, I don't have time to read or I don't have time to that, it's not optional. Like if you have time to sit down on the couch and watch TV, you've got time to pour into yourself and in a way that will grow you. And just to give you like a Bible sort of uh, anchor here, which I love, in Proverbs, it talks about guard your heart. It's the wellspring of life. Everything flows through your heart, right? Well, the way that I look at it is what you put in here gets inside of here.
Mhm.
What you put in here gets inside of here. And even what you put in. So whatever comes in, what you're listening to, what you're taking in, how you're developing, it's impacting your heart, it's impacting your decisions, it's impacting the people that you're around. So to make a super long story short, investing in self, the mind, growing that personally, professionally, spiritually, socially, emotionally, no, hands down, the
Mhm.
best investment.
I agree. I always say working on me benefits we, right?
Okay, I'm stealing that, and I'm gonna give you credit for, like, the first 5 times I say it, but after that, it's mine. I'm totally taking it.
Absolutely.
Working on me benefits we. Alright, that's already one. I've got 4 more. You're
I love it. And we are actually doing an event in Orlando
what?
um, in June 11th through the 13th. Um,
Okay.
and it's very possible I will be doing my first live speaking engagement, sharing my story at that
What?
event.
What
So
can you say what it's called, what the event is?
it's called Rise Up. And I'll send you a link. It's with a guy named AJ Gupta and a lady named Laura Louise Persetti.
Okay,
Persichetti. I always
okay,
butcher that name.
okay.
And they are in the personal development space
I heard
themselves.
AJ on your podcast. Yeah.
Yes, AJ is like, he's literally one of
Awesome.
the finest people I've ever met. And they're starting their their own movement. And I'm in Clubhouse. I don't know if you know what Clubhouse is,
I
but
do. I got
I'm
an invite. I'm never in there, man.
yeah. Well, we have a room every morning, 7 a.m. Central. Well, 8 a.m. Wow, whatever. We
Yeah.
changed it now, so now it's
Okay.
at 10 a.m. Central. But for the entire past year, I was in this room every single day. And AJ, his mother and his father are there, and him and his father are both life coaches. His father is top 5 relationship coach in the world. He's kind of a big deal. And
Okay.
all they would do was just show up and serve. And
Wow.
if somebody had
Wow.
an issue, they would just coach them. And I kind of like, I stumbled into my tribe.
Yeah.
And the first time I shared my story, and when we go back to talking about our whys, right? The first time I
Mhm.
shared my story, Neil, AJ's dad, he said, "You know what, Tony? Are you writing a book?" And I said,
Mhm.
"No." He said, "Well, let me tell you this. There's people out there that could benefit from your story.
Amen.
And every day that you don't put it out, someone suffers as a result of that.
Wow.
And
No
who are
pressure.
you?" And who are you to make people suffer? And I was like, "Well, God," like, okay, like, I guess I got it. But instead of that,
Mhm.
Deeply Rooted was
Mhm.
born that night. That very night. I did it the same night. I just started. I didn't know what the heck I was doing, and I just
Wow.
jumped in. Right.
Wow.
And I don't know where I was going with that. Oh, it just was saying about how I've kind of come into this family, and now I've like been growing so much over the last year, and now I'm like helping run the room, and I'm serving every morning and coaching, and it's just grew into this whole other thing. And to go back to your answer to the question, it's that investment in myself, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And because working on me
Mhm.
benefits we, and we for me is the people around me, my family,
Yeah.
my friends, and being the example, because not everyone's ready to hear the message. Not everyone's in a place where they want to hear you talk about it all the time. So I've
Right.
decided to be it, right, and then
Wow.
just go from there.
Well, and you talk about that it'll be the first time or maybe the first time that you share publicly, from stage, and
Yeah.
I just want to encourage you because I'm thinking back about where you came from. You're a performer. I mean, God knew this. He
Yeah.
was preparing you, and he was preparing me when I was Lady K. I mean, getting comfortable in front of a crowd where
Yeah.
we have to have a microphone in our hand to tell the testimony. It's not ours. He gives us that beautiful blessing to share with others. And they're right. If we're not sharing what he's done and sharing our gift to others, there's people that that are gonna just they'll never know. They'll never know. And you're using your platform so beautifully, Tony. But he's been preparing you for that stage for many years.
Yeah, and I see that. I some of my toughest public speaking or public performance moments have been on stage. I've had some horrific ones that like could have lost my life. Like it's just it's been bad. So you're right, and I'm realizing that a lot, Krystal. Here recently is like every single thing I've been through has brought me to
Mhm.
this point,
Yeah.
and good, bad, or ugly, I needed it all,
Wow.
and I love
Yeah.
who I am. So the fact that I love who I am and who I've become means that it was all worth it. So
Every
I,
day. We're gonna connect in June. I wanna hear more. I wanna come. I'll be there.
absolutely,
I'll be there,
I
my
will
friend.
send you a link.
Yeah.
So how do you define love?
Whoa. Oh, wow. Well, I think the biggest definition of it is lived out in the Bible. And I always tell people, like, I'm a Christ follower. I hate religion. I loathe it. I just think that religion is what actually got Jesus killed. So I don't ever want to be divisive in just love, what love is. But the greatest example of love is lived out by Christ and God. I mean, sin separated us from him. and it's our sin, and we're sinful humans. I sin. Let me tell you, when you get up here to Orlando, Florida, you're going to get on this thing. It's called I-4.
Mhm.
I-4 corridor is like, I don't know how many lanes, and by the time I get on to the time I get off, I've gotten saved like 4 more times, like had to ask for forgiveness, okay? It just happens on the highway. I don't know what it is. It's a small town girl in me. But my point is that we're sinners, and we were separated because of that sin. And so God loved us so much that he gave us an opportunity to be with him and to not have nothing separate us from him, nothing at all, just calling him into your heart. And so that's love. That's the greatest kind of love. And that's the model that we have, is to serve each other. Like I don't want anything out of this time but just to serve you, Tony, and to serve the people that are part of your podcast. I mean, I don't care. I don't, if I ever sell another book or if I speak at I don't, it's not about that. It's about how can I serve you, and just in service to each other as humans.
I agree. I agree. Very well said. And speaking of love, can you think of an act of kindness you were once shown that you will never forget?
Yeah, I actually can, and I wrote about it in my book too. So the thing about writing a book when you write yours, Tony, is number one, I know a lot of publishers, so we can connect you. But number two is that you have time to reflect on some things. And probably one of the coolest and greatest acts of kindness that really impressed me, we call them lollipop moments. I've seen a podcast from Drew Dudley, and he calls it a lollipop moment. So, a
Mm,
lollipop moment for me was when I became a supervisor in the call center, and the director at the time, she was my manager in HR, and then came over as my director. Kind of a long story, but she basically encouraged me to get my degree. Remember, I told you I dropped out.
mhm,
And she said she was a lawyer. She was making, multiple six figures. And she just said, you need to get your degree. Not only did she encourage me, but she made the space for me to go pick up those 21 hours for me to get that. So fast forward, I get my degree, and she says, can you meet me at Barnes and Noble? I want to meet you there. So we meet outside of work. And she had two things for me. Now, one of them was a bottle of wine. Wine came and go. But the other one was a book, and I keep it here in my library, and it was The Secrets of Six-Figure Women.
mm,
And I read that book cover to cover, and I thought to myself, she believes that I could make six figures. Like, keep in mind, like, I had never even considered making a six-figure a year income. But what was the reoccurring theme of the book was basically do what you love. Do what
mm,
you love, and everything else will work out itself, and that's really the theme of that book. But it was bigger than the book. It was that someone saw me, someone believed in me, and she saw this for me. And when I superseded her as my mentor and became a higher ranking in the company, she was so proud of me, Tony.
mm.
And I'll never forget that act of kindness. And you know what the act of kindness is? It's believing in somebody, seeing something in them that they can't see in themselves, but then helping them to pull that out. She did it for me. And not only did I make six, I made multiple six. And it was because someone said to me, you're worth more than that.
I love that. I love that. And this is one of my favorite questions in this show, just because I like hearing those stories, right? Because you never know those small things that you do, giving someone a
Mhm.
book and wine, while it may be coming from your heart, you never know the effect that you can have on people, right? Which
Yeah.
is why I put this question in here, because I like to encourage that more kindness and more giving. Something I learned from AJ and from Tony Robbins, the secret to living is giving, like you said, being in
Mhm.
service, right?
Yeah.
And it doesn't always mean money. It doesn't always, it could be time. It could be a smile. It could be just a simple smile,
Wow.
holding the door for someone. But in those moments, all the pain and suffering disappears. You feel amazing, right?
Yeah.
So
Wow.
I love that. I love that this question, and I love that answer, because, and something I started doing with my kids the last 4 or 5 years. Christmas time, everyone's getting a book. every
Oh,
single one.
wow.
And I will take time. I will be in the bookstore and I will pick a book specifically for you that I think will help you with where you're at. And I don't know. They don't read them, I'm pretty sure, but one day they will, like
Wow. That's
so
amazing. That's a
books
great
are a great
idea.
gift, right?
Yeah,
Um
yeah.
so in the last 5 years,
Mhm.
what new belief, behavior, or habit has most improved your life?
Yeah. Yeah, the one that has really most improved my life, I used to really live out my life, and really it's been a good 5 year. It was after divorce number 2, and finally sitting and just going, "Okay, I have really screwed up this whole life thing."
Mm,
And I just keep failing and failing at the important stuff, the big stuff, right?
yeah.
And just sitting there and going, "I'm not gonna run, I'm not gonna try to do what the world says," and I fully accepted Jesus in my life, and I said, "All right, I give up, I can't do this thing." And it wasn't just that acceptance piece, but it was all my life. I thought that it was Christianity was here. I was a Sunday Christian. I
Mhm.
went to church on Sunday, so I am a Christian. And I might say bless you, right? And I might say that and really feel super Christ-like in my walk in faith, but I wasn't living it. And
Right.
so the biggest belief and thing and change in me personally was when I realized the power of inviting in God and Christ in my life always, not just
Right.
on Sunday, and
Right.
really having that abiding relationship with my creator, with my father, and that has made the biggest difference in terms of where I'm at, how I serve, how I work, insights, instincts, things that are like a book, like the things that are happening are just unbelievable, but it was all because I just surrendered. Honestly, it was surrender. I surrendered control, I surrendered my comfort zone, and I
Right.
surrendered what I would consciously expect to happen, and just truly opened that door, and so it's that abiding relationship with my creator.
I love it. And what I love most about that is that self-awareness and again that honesty, right? They're just looking and saying, look, I'm not really walking what I'm talking.
Mm,
And and we know, right? We know if we're giving it all we got. We
wow.
know if we're just calling it in, right?
Mhm.
And that right there in itself can cause you torment, just even if it's subconscious, right? Like I could go harder, I don't this I need, like you said, watching Netflix and not reading, or right,
Right.
we all know. And why would you ever want to cheat yourself,
Whoa.
you know
Wow.
because imagine what life is like when you're at the absolute best you can possibly be. Like if you've gotten this far and you've done this many amazing things, right? What would that look like if you were at your damn best? And the only way
Wow.
you can get there is not cheat yourself and have that
Wow.
self-awareness, right? So
Yeah.
I love that. I love that.
Wow. Mm.
Okay, we got about 6 minutes because I
Yes.
definitely have to go,
Yes.
but we have five more questions. Here's
Whoa.
another. Here's another one of
What's
my
your
favorite
favorite?
ones. What advice would you give to a smart driven kid about to enter the real world?
Hmm. Yeah, I think the simple piece of advice would be don't quit, don't give up. It's gonna get hard. Don't give up. And actually, I'll be doing a commencement speech in May, and I think it's gonna be really centered around, dig in, don't quit. You can't quit. Take it off the table. It's not an option. I heard somebody say something the other day I thought was super really hit me, and it was imagine yourself 20 years from now and ask yourself the advice that seek the question that you're looking for an answer for.
Mm,
So the you 20 years from now is like, so if you're dealing with a struggle or you don't know if it's the right thing to do, ask yourself the 20 years from now you.
mm,
And what's the answer? And you
mm,
know it. And that's really about learning to listen to your voice, to listen to your
mm.
instinct, trusting yourself, and really building on that.
Love it. And trusting yourself is a reoccurring theme
Mm,
here in this interview too, right?
mhm. Yeah.
So I definitely want to honor you for that, right? Just believing in yourself, trusting in yourself, and putting in the work to better
Mm,
yourself. So if nobody said it, I will say
thank you. Well
it.
received. I received that. Thank you.
um, our mantra here at Deeply Rooted is kill the ego,
Mm,
ignite the soul.
mm.
What does that mean to you?
Wow. Well, I think I briefly shared it, when I was in corporate.
Mm.
Like, once I got that job as a vice president, like, I didn't get any funnier, but people were laughing at my jokes. And when you're 34 years old and you're making a good lot of money and you're set for life and you have your pension, like, it would have been so easy to just let the ego just go out of control, right? It just would have, and I feel like there were certain parts of that story where was grounded and
Mhm.
humble, but there was also parts where I felt like it was something I did. I earned it. Yeah,
Yeah,
I did it on my own. And so I think the biggest thing for me with, what was it? Something with the ego, ignite the soul, right?
yeah.
People
Kill the
could
ego.
kill the ego. Yeah, kill the ego, ignite the soul. And I think that as time went on, my ego got so big. It really did. And my soul was was getting smaller. So the
Mm,
more ego I had, there wasn't room for the soul to grow.
mm,
And so it was almost like ignite the ego and the soul will suffer. And so the 2 can't coexist, and I love, Martin Luther King's, quote. He says, "Hate cannot drive out hate, only love can do that. Darkness cannot drive out darkness, only light can do that."
mm.
And when you think about light and darkness, they cannot exist together. They cannot coexist. It
Yeah.
is not possible for them, which is like Christ, right, and sin.
Mm,
And so when you think about ego and soul, they cannot exist. One cannot grow they both cannot grow at the same time. They can't. It's not possible. It's that black and white to me. And
yeah.
so my ego grew and my soul withered. And so I think that what that means to me, and it's a great reminder to stay humble on this path, man. If
Mm,
any amount of success just means that you're much is given, much is expected. And so every little bit of a success, much is expected to sow back into this world. And if you don't think that that is true, pride goeth before the fall.
mm,
And the fall is hard. The fall is
mm.
hard. I've experienced it. And
Yeah.
so I think the biggest thing for people to understand is really remembering that to humble yourself so that you can serve and serve something positive into the world. And that's what grows, and that's what duplicates, and that's what seeds the rest of the people around you.
I love it, and I love the example of the two not being able to exist together. And I'm
Mm,
going to take that a little bit farther. I mean, through over the time, we've kind of adjusted this to dim the ego, ignite the
mm,
soul,
mm.
because the ego shows up sometimes for information, to give you information, right?
Okay.
To give you courage, encouragement. Sometimes it's what pushes you through that little I'm better than this, or I'm better than them, and sometimes it has a purpose, right?
Right, right.
So dimming it, not killing it, is
Wow,
where we've kind of evolved this
wow,
to. But
wow.
now we're gonna take that to not being able to coexist, and we're gonna grow that more. So I love this show
Oh,
because we're
wow.
just growing these ideas, right?
Stirring me up
Um,
on that one, man.
um, okay, so we all have this moment in our journeys where we want to call it quits when we are at our lowest, so to speak.
Mhm.
When you reach that point on your path, how did you fight through?
Yeah, that's truly where I connected with my why, and I dug in. I had to find that why and really put it out in front of me, keep it present. Because there's been a lot of times I mean, come on, man, I was 20 some years old, dropped out of college and went home. Like, I wanted to quit. I wanted to quit so bad. I had to go back to the very place I said I'd never go back to. Like, wouldn't it have been easy to shrivel up right there? Like, it
Yeah.
really would have, and never leave that town again, never, and get comfortable and complacent and just die there. But
Wow.
I didn't. And at the time, I didn't have my daughter, so I didn't really have the same why. So
Mhm.
what drugged me out? What pushed me through? And, um, I don't know, I'm gonna really have to reflect on what that was because, I just kept walking, and I think
Mhm.
that's the thing is, like, fail forward, which basically means you're moving forward. Like, when people fail, it's because you quit. That's the only way to truly fail is to quit. Only way is to
Yep.
quit. And you're such a perfect example of someone that army crawled to not quit. Like, why? Why did you do that?
Yeah.
Overcoming every obstacle, every personal, every physical limitation so that you could continue on in this world, man.
Yep.
It's that why. You've heard that saying before, like where the guy holds him under the water and then and lets him finally come out and he says, what's the most important thing? Air. You gotta like go for the air to get success. You've heard that, right?
Hmm.
But you gotta want something, you gotta love something, whatever that why is that much. It's gonna push you because it's hard, man. It's a hard journey.
I actually use that example a lot.
Okay.
So
I know I'm
that's
a
all.
teller, but I mess up things and words and states and things like it's not my gifting. I'm a visionary.
um, so on a day-to-day basis, when you feel overwhelmed or you feel you've lost your focus temporarily, what do you do?
No. Well, the honest answer on that really
Hmm.
is, um, I don't know what president was, and of course, I wouldn't know the details, but he said that he is the most fresh and has the best thoughts in the morning. So he takes a nap, and that way he has 2 mornings. And honestly, sometimes if I lose my focus or I'm overwhelmed, sometimes literally resetting my circulatory system and literally sleeping for 5 minutes. It's what works for me. I
Yeah.
will sleep for 5 minutes and start over and just completely be refreshed, restored, and ready to go back with a new attitude. So I know you probably have not ever heard that. Maybe you have on your show.
No, but I am an avid nap guy, right? So you just justified all my naps.
You're the best in the morning. So this is how you say it, Tony. I'm the best in the morning. So I take a nap. So I have 2 mornings. And like
I
honestly,
love it.
but there is something about sleep and the power of sleep and what it actually does for your brain, for your body, for your health, for your mindset. And so I really feel like I always tell people, give yourself a 24-hour pity party if you need to. Like go
Yeah.
cry. That's all you get. You don't get any more than that. And some people, like you and me, it might literally just be go lay down for a minute and then come back. But
Mhm.
don't be laying down all day and literally get out of the dark room for hours, guys. Like that's not going to serve you. So balance, keep it balanced. I'm a
Yeah.
5-minute napper.
It's okay. I mean, you should feel what you're feeling, right? It's okay to
Mhm,
do that. It's just not
mhm.
okay to live there, right?
That's right.
Visit, check it out, say,
Mhm.
okay, I don't really like this, so I'm leaving
Right.
now.
That's
Just don't
right.
live
That's
there.
right. That's right, man.
If you could have a gigantic billboard that
Okay.
the whole world would see, what would it say and why?
That's a lot of pressure. A gigantic billboard that everyone in the world could see.
Hmm.
Mm. Well, I think just because of what I'm passionate about and what we're focused on, with the Christian Chamber, and my gigantic billboard would say create kingdom commerce. And what that basically means is come together and support people, support what you're about, support what you believe. Like, so we're creating kingdom commerce. That's what we're doing. We're in a space where we're around like valued people and we're supporting them. Pray, refer, support, do business with, and grow kingdom business. So that's my billboard. Like I'm proud about that. That's the billboard I'm wearing is create kingdom commerce, man, change the world.
Love it. if you could give a gift to every person in the world, what would it be?
That's easy for me. I would offer them an opportunity to change their life with the salvation of Christ. I would. That's the gift. It's the greatest gift ever given, ever.
I agree. I figured that's what you would say.
I know I'm predictable in that one.
um, so last question. My music background, I have to put this in there. This is kind of
Mhm.
selfish because I build a playlist and then I use the songs. So what
Oh,
song would you
ooh.
consider to be the soundtrack to your life? Or is there a song that you turn to for strength?
Mhm. Yeah. Well, I mean, for me, elevation worship, you put that thing on repeat and you can't help but to just feel like you can go conquer some stuff. But if you're looking for one song, I would say for me it's Jireh. Jireh, Jehovah Jireh, he is my provider. And if you haven't heard it, add it to that playlist and see what happens.
I will. I absolutely
Jireh,
will.
Jireh. Yeah.
Well, Krystal, I do have to go get this kid to
I know
basketball,
you do.
but
I know.
this
Thanks for
has been amazing. You did such a great job, and
thank you.
I learned, I grew.
Thank
So
you.
thank you for that.
Thank
Is
you.
there anything that we can do to serve you?
Oh, you're so kind. Well, I mean, I loved it. Can't wait till it comes out. And as I was speaking the answers, I'm like, I know your audience is really diverse, and so I I hope I didn't like scare anybody away. But it's like you're asking such questions that are like true to my heart. But I'd love to share your work, share this podcast if that's okay. If we
Hmm.
could do that. I'd love to
Yep,
do that. And connect with you in June when you come.
absolutely.
Yeah, and then just stay in touch. Like 25 years is like too long, man. And I know God,
Absolutely.
I know God's doing a good work in you, Tony. I
And
know
he is with
God
you as
will.
well.
Thank you. Yeah,
So I'm
both.
proud of you, sister.
I'm proud of you too, my friend. I'm proud of you too. And
Okay,
thank you
so
for reminding me about courage because you really sowed a good seed in me today, and I had forgotten about that. It is a reoccurring thing. So thank you for that.
you're welcome. And the this will be on YouTube immediately. As soon
Oh,
as we
cool.
end, it's on YouTube. So
Awesome.
I'll be on the highway, but I will send
Yeah.
you a link
Okay.
later.
That'd
All
be
right.
awesome. But we're gonna blow people's mind when they hear Lady K. I don't tell that part of my story. It's so funny, but that just goes to show you how far God can bring you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well,
All right.
blessings, Tony. Thank you.
Have a great evening. Thank you.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.